Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the Tin Hifi C3, and these are my honest audiophile impressions. I want to thank HifiGo for providing the Tin Hifi C3 for review. Do greatly appreciate it. HifiGo, you rock. So the Tin Hifi C3, this will set you back $60 from your bank account. Currently, at the time of this recording, it is on sale on HifiGo for $50. Alright, so the Tin Hifi C3, this has a 10mm dynamic driver. It also has a PU plus ultra linear LCP composite diaphragm coil. The impedance is 32 ohms, sensitivity is 106 decibels, and a frequency response of 10 Hz to 20 kHz. The Tin Hifi C3, it comes in a very, very basic box. You get a C3 model number here on the front, a little bit of Tin Hifi branding in a couple spots, and some specs on the side. And then the back is just a bunch of branding. Inside it, you get your IEMs and a box of accessories. And the box of accessories includes a bag of tips. That's it. So you get 6 silicone tips of various sizes, and they're all shaped like a grape or an olive, and it has a little bit wider bore than the norm. I like these tips, and I did use them. I did not use alternate tips. I found that using alternate tips caused issues for me with fit, seal, and also comfort. The strangest thing happened when I used alternate tips was the comfort went down to about 30 to 45 minutes before I started feeling pain. Going back to using the stock tips, the fit and seal were a little bit better, and comfort went up to a couple hours before I started to get a little discomfort and had to take a break. Strangest thing ever. Alright, so then you also get the C3. Now the C3 is a very nice looking IEM, especially for the price point. Got a little bit of branding there in the middle with the Tin Hifi logo, and then they have a carbon fiber faceplate, and they're all black. As you can see, it's got a wing on it, and a really nice angle and a decent length. This is a very well built shell, and I like it quite a bit. It fits in my ears very well. I find that with the stock tips, as I mentioned, it has a good seal and a good fit. The comfort is about a couple of hours before they become kind of, okay, let's take a little break here. As you can see, they're very small. They fit right in my ears. If you're used to a Tin Hifi T3 Plus or a P1 Max, they're very similar in the shape, and I find these to actually be a little bit more comfortable than those other two, even though they all kind of look very similar. They do a really good job of isolating out outside noises. You're probably somewhere in about the 75% of outside noises being blocked. It's exceptionally good. They kind of put you in your own little spot. The only things that I heard with these going on were extremely loud vehicles being when I was outside, and the vacuum cleaner and carpet cleaner. So these do a really good job of putting you in your little zone. So they'd be good for the office and light duty like that. I did not take any public transit trips. The cable of the C3 is good. Connects with 2-pin. You got a little bit of a split here, a cinch that doesn't really stay in place. It's kind of loose, and then it terminates to 3.5. I found that the Tin Hifi C3 is very easy to drive. It's not picky at all with sources. any dongle can drive it, anything from a 7Hz 71 and a periodic audio rhodium all the way up through Hibi FC4, Next Drive Spectra X, the audio engine, DAC3, Heidi's XO, you name it. You are going to be just fine using a dongle. And then the DAPs are also able to drive it very well and desktops. DAPs that I used were the Hibi R5 Gen 2, Sony NWA105, and also the Sony NW1A. I found that they all just worked very well with the C3, and same thing with desktop gear. Overall, I'm very pleased with the build and the look and the ease of drivability of the C3. Before we get into the sonic impressions of the C3, I want to thank those who support me through YouTube memberships and Patreon. Thank you very much for the funds that you provide to the channel. It is much appreciated. I know that in these days and times in the world, it's not easy to go through life financially. So any support and any sacrifices that you make on a daily and monthly basis to give back to a channel is much appreciated. The funds that you provide are put back into the channel to do reviews and purchase gear to review, purchase gear to produce the videos, or also to use to compare and do that. So thank you very much for everything that you have provided to the channel. It is much appreciated. If you are interested in becoming a supporter of The Honest Audiophile, please check out the links down below. There's ways that you can support it on a monthly basis or to give one-time gifts. Also, while you're down there, don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll know the next time a video is uploaded. All right, so the TINHIFI C3. How do they sound? TINHIFI C3 kind of has that TINHIFI house sound to it. The bass is a nice and energetic bass, a little bit more mid-bass focused than sub-bass and upper bass focused, but it has just enough of sub-bass rumble and grumble to keep things toe tapping and to extend a little bit. Mid-bass has a nice punch and slam to it. Now, this is not a bass head IEM, but it does give enough drive to not sound boring, and there's enough energy there to keep things going. Upper bass is a little bit thinner sounding than the mid bass is and the sub bass. But overall, I like the tonality of the bass. Everything sounds correct. It sounds natural and realistic, and there's enough there to keep the music flowing. The mids have a naturalism about them. There's very good tone and timbre. There's nice space between instruments and vocalists, and everything's very well separated, and everything's pretty well cohesive. It's not quite balanced though. So the lower mids and the main mids have a nice evenness to them, and they really do work together very well. The upper mids have a slight increase, right around 4K. There's just a little too much elevation, and they'll become at times a little too energetic and a little too just what's the word, blunt. They're just a little too forthright in their presentation, and it really comes through on songs that are focused with female singing or with instruments in higher octaves. It just becomes a little too forthright, a little too blunt, a little too much in your face. And for me, who likes a little bit more forwardness there, it's on the border of being too much. So if you're sensitive to upper mids, the C3 may be a little too much for you. And then going into the treble has lower treble presence. So somewhere around the 7K range, it's a little bit too much. And for me, it actually becomes a little fatiguing at times. Things can just come across a little too zingy, a little bit too, and it'll be just a little too much. And then the rest of the treble is very well extended, and there's good air and there's good presence, and it has a nice approach to it. It almost becomes a little laid back and a little bit more smooth up top. But it's those two peaks, 4K and 7K, that are just a little too bold, a little too blunt, a little too forthright, and things can just get a little too intense at times. And the 4K is borderline for me. The 7K is just a little too much. So I like the sound of the Tin Hifi C3, but it has those peaks that go, and just remind me that, okay, you're there. And Soundstage. Now the Soundstage of the C3 is excellent. It has a average size width to it, and it does a good job of portraying sizes of venues, whether they're small, medium, or large. And you can kind of diagnose, based on the recording of what you think the stage size should be, that it's portraying it well. Depth is not the best. It's okay at depth. It is a little bit better than some other Tin Hifis, and we'll get into that in comparisons here in a moment. But it's not the deepest stages ever, but you can diagnose things and you can tell how things are. You can read into a stage. And then layering is very well done. There's a nice amount of layering. Things are in front of each other and around each other, and they play, and it's a very cohesive, and you can spot things and place things. Imaging is really good. It's for the price point, one of the best at being precise and accurate. You can really go, okay, that's right there, and that's right there. There's no three blob effect as things go across the stage. It transitions very smoothly. Tone and timbre is very natural and realistic, as you would expect from a Tin Hifi product. Everything sounds proper and true, and you can differentiate between instruments, whether what type it is, and you can follow them through as they go through. You follow the melodic tracks of each instrument. So overall, I like the Tin Hifi C3, and it has just those moments of it's a little intense, but overall, it's a very, very good sounding IEM. How does it compare to its a little bit pricier brother here with the more twisty cable? Wow. We will work on that later. The Tin Hifi T3 Plus. Now, the T3 Plus is slightly warmer. It is a little bit more bloated in the upper bass regions. It's a little bit more thick. Has a little bit more natural tone and timbre, but does not have as good separation and space. And then the treble is more accentuated and is more energetic, not quite as laid back as it is on the C3. Also, the upper mids and lower treble regions are more emphasized and more intense on the C3. The C3 has a little bit less upper bass presence and isn't quite as bloated and thick. And the C3 has a little bit more depth and layering than the T3 Plus because it's not quite as thick sounding. How does it compare to the Tin Hifi T2? Now the T2 obviously will not have as much bass presence. It's not as thick sounding, and it is not as emphasized in the upper mids and lower treble regions. But it is a little bit more spacious and a little bit more airy sounding, has a little bit lighter of a note weight, and doesn't quite have as much density to the notes. The T2 has a larger stage, has better depth and better layering, is a little bit more on the analytical leaning side of things, and will come across as sounding a little bit brighter. Overall, the T2 is the more detailed and resolving of the three, and I find that the C3 is the more smooth, except for those peaks at 4K and 7K. So overall, I really like the Tin Hifi C3. It's a very fun, engaging sound, and it is a pleasure to listen to, except for at moments when those peaks kind of come through and catch you off guard. So if you're looking for a little bit more energetic version of the T3 Plus, I would look at the C3. It's a very good IEM. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next videos, somewhere on screen, subscription links, notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video, and also to hit that notification bell if you haven't already, and to subscribe if you haven't already. There's all kinds of information down below in the links. If you can check out the description, there's ways that you can contact channel, follow channel, support the channel, music recommendations, gear recommendations, and all kinds of other information down below. So don't forget to check all that off. And then don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.